It's time for the newspaper review segment, and as usual, we'll start with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The major story, as usual, for the past week now, it's been the same situation of the Emirates tussle. Protesters hit Kano streets, demand Bayero's return. The writers are saying commissioners and local government chairs on solidarity visit to Sanusi. Don't destabilize Kano, opposition lawmakers tell the federal government. I have accepted my fate, the throned emir of GAIYA said. We have uncovered plot to attack state assembly and others. That's according to the police. You'll find this major story on page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Below the headlines there, Tinubu's policies necessary but wrongly implemented. That's according to the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. 3 killed, 7 injured as mosque collapses in Lagos. A sad situation there. You'll find the story on page 7. We cannot educate our children by leaving them begging. That is, something that is a fact. That's according to the Sultan of Sokoto. Below the major story here, police confirms 11 killed in Katsina bandits attacks. Sad situation also in Katsina again after the everyday, situation or insecurity news coming out from the northern part of Nigeria. Tinubu comments Dangote and on Lagos road project. 2 abducted Kogi University students killed. That is beside that as a pictorial of the fact that the president, is commending Dangote. That there's a pictorial of Deputy Speaker, House of Representative, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, the Minister of Works, Senator David Nweze Umahi, Senate President Godswill Akpabio, who represented President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and also there's the president and the CEO of Dangote Industries Limited, as Aliko Dangote, officiating the commissioning of the Dangote reconstructed Apapa Orowo Shoki Ojota Expressway Lagos yesterday. Below the paper there, it says the federal government sues 36 governors and seeks full autonomy for the local governments. They asked the Supreme Court to halt transfer of local government funds to states, wants end to appointment of unelected council chairs, and the Governors Forum silent. You find that story on page 5. Now, these are the stories that you find on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The major story is saying firms and Gencos in fresh crisis over eligible customer policy review. At this point, you find that story on page 6. The council autonomy, Supreme Court fixes May 30th to hear the federal government suit against the state's governors. Emirates tussle, protest rocks Kano as government considers curfew to curtail violence. And there is Tinubu promises compensation on coastal highway. These are the stories that you'd find on the Guardian newspaper this morning. Now let's move on to more newspaper there. Let's quickly take a look at the more newspapers there. The Punch newspaper, from the top of the page, it says Kano Emirates tussle, Bayero supporters protest as Sanusi meets district heads. Bayero is our emir, protesters insist. Arewa group urges dethroned leader to vacate Kano. The federal government suit against 36 governors over local government funds begins. Major story is talking about the coastal highway will boost 30 million businesses. That's according to President Tinubu. The president says the project will foster trade, tourism, and seeks counterpart funding. Tinubu insists landowners will get compensation as the 700-kilometer highway, a symbol of unity. Below the pictorial there we see minor killed, others injured as excavator hits Lagos mosque. Outrage over brutal murder of Oyo private varsity student, and gunmen abduct Ondo travelers. 4 others escape. Now these are the stories that you'd find on the Punch newspaper this morning. We have, as usual, our Monday reviewer, SULEIMAN, the CEO, Skilimit Group, and former deputy editor of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, joining us to dissect and review the front pages of the national dailies. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
As usual, it's good to have you.
Thank you so
Let's
much.
talk about what is happening in your state, I mean, the Kano state. And one of the writers caught my attention saying, you know, the king from, or the former king from your own emirate, you know, the GAIYA, has accepted his fate on the situation. What is your take, you know, first hand from somebody who is from Kano?
Well, let me first of all start by commending my own emir, or former emir, that up there, who gladly or heartily accepted his fate. He deserves commendation by allowing peace to reign and also by respecting constituted authorities in Kano. So I commend him, and I remain very proud of him, and I foresee a better future for him, God willing. Secondly, the headline, protesters hit Kano streets, demand Bayero's return. Clearly, I have evidence, and I'm going to cite this evidence, that those protests were sponsored or have been sponsored. Because you see, I'm from Kano, and that is a state where, if you look at the history of protest, you hardly see people carrying placards. But yesterday's protests, we saw people bearing placards and also threatening the governor, issuing all kinds of threats, also setting bonfires, doing all kinds of things. It was never peaceful. And I wonder why this kind of thing will happen the way it has happened. Ordinarily, I should be among the protesters because my own emirate was abolished or dissolved. But then, reason, you know, we have grown to a level where, you know, one should not give into emotion. And I believe those protesting should respect what the Kano state government has done, because no matter what, there is no law or there is no court in Nigeria in the long run that can stop the Kano governor from appointing the governor or abolishing the emirate he doesn't want. You know, it is within his power to do so, and he has exercised that power.
But how did we get here? I mean, these people, first of all, even though we know the governors have powers, but the least they can do, or the most they can do, is 8 years. And, you know, from the former governor, Abdullahi Ganduje's decision was the major problem, the major cause of this problem. You know, tussling emirates that normally they spend lifetime doing this. How did we even get to this point when the emirate is being reduced to politics?
That is what happened when you elect leaders who easily give into emotion, who take personal revenge, who prioritize personal revenge, you know. And that is the kind of leaders we have had in Kano over the past few years. Especially, I'm sorry to say, Ganduje. I had cause to somehow criticize him last week in this very studio, and I am going to do so again. Honestly, he is the cause of this problem. He is the one who, out of vengeance, removed SULEIMAN unilaterally. And talking about court, I'm so surprised that the same APC government that didn't see reason in stopping Ganduje, even though a court of competent jurisdiction had stopped him in 2019-2020 from removing Sunusi or creating new emirates. And now, talking about court order issued by a court that doesn't even have jurisdiction. And now look at what is happening to the country. Our own troops, our own soldiers are being made to guard the former emir, the dethroned emir, Amina Bayero, someone I personally respect. But I feel so sad seeing Amina Bayero allowing himself to be toyed by politicians. I mean, he should have toyed the fact of his own younger brother, the former emir of Beach, who said he has accepted this as the will of God. But I don't see how and why Amina Bayero is insisting in returning to the throne.
I mean, honestly...
Sorry, there is this point I want to make. Whereas our troops are being made to guard Amina Bayero, look at what happened within the last 2-3 days. On Friday, over 200 people were kidnapped, abducted in Munya local government of Niger State. And look at, even on this page, police confirm 11 killed in Kazana bandit attacks. Some of the people in that attack are saying the people that have been killed are over 40. But let's look at the official figure. Let's even take the official figure, 11. So much has happened. A lot of people were also kidnapped in Ondo State. Why don't you deploy those resources, human resources, the few troops that we have, into fighting these kind of things? and you are here deploying troops towards protecting an emir that has been dethroned legally, you know, and the one that has been enthroned legally, you have abandoned him. They have allowed only hunters and vigilantes to guard him. It's a very dangerous president we are setting. And like Engineer Rabi Musa Konkoso said, the president himself should remember that he shouldn't allow this kind of things to continue to happen under his watch. Because at the end of the day, it is his name and not Ganduje or any other person's name that will be mentioned. Years from now, it will be mentioned as Tinubu's administration, not Ganduje or any other person's administration.
I mean, at the end of the day, when you made mention of the reaction of, you know, different emirates that were dethroned, they're both humans. So people react differently, and you wouldn't really blame, you know, Bayero for how he reacts. We just have to put it out there. I mean, someone having something and then being dethroned, we also sympathize and empathize with SULEIMAN at that time when he was going through that, because it was not necessary. And of course, it puts everybody in this kind of situation.
But if you remember, Sanusi took it in his stride, even though they really humiliated him. But he never.
It was a humiliation. We all know. We didn't know how he. Each day passed, I kept sympathizing. Is he okay? Is he fine? Because it is a mentally, you know, draining situation. Indeed. To own so much power and then to be yanked off you. So we also, while we are, you know, say celebrating Sunusi's return, we also empathize with all the emirs that, you know, have been dethroned.
I do empathize with them, really, honestly, but I complain about the fact that Bayero is losing respect, and that is the bitter truth, by insisting in returning to the throne. He knows it's an exercise in serious futility.
It's really a sad situation happening in Kano. Honestly, we'll just hope that at the end of the day, the decision that is being made should also be putting the people of Kano State first. It's all about the safety. And yes, your point of saying that security should be pushed to places that truly need to be secured is a point also. Well, let's move on to more stories. I mean, quickly, I want to get your take on this situation of the federal government suing 36 governors seeking full autonomy.
Honestly, I seriously welcome it. I ran a column in one of the national newspapers, and I will say 30% of my writings are on local government autonomy. I've been doing this over the years because I was part of a state government, that of Kano, at the time, over a decade ago, when I served as special advisor to the governor of Kano. At that time, Malam Ibrahim Shekaro. He was about the only governor in Nigeria then who allowed local governments to thrive. He was giving them their due allocation, giving them all the power to act as constitutionally enshrined. Unfortunately, since then, even in Kano, we have not seen another governor replicating what Shekaro did. It has always been one case of one governor snatching all the allocation, and in any case, even dictating who becomes local government chairman. So I really welcome this idea of federal government suing the 36 state governors. Local governments should have complete autonomy, even if for our national security. You remember we discussed the same issue last week about the fact that there is no hope at the grassroots level is the main reason why the rural-urban migration has continued to balloon. And when the rural dwellers come to the cities, they realize there is hardly anything they can do, and they easily become easy prey for criminal elements. So this is part of the reason why security has continued to worsen in Nigeria. And governors should not be allowed to continue to do this. They should be tamed. They should also not be allowed to be appointing unelected persons as caretaker committee chairman.
Indeed.
Let there be election. And I think part of this should be that maybe even if it takes a constitutional amendment, state governors should be stopped from conducting local government elections. Because in practically all the states, apart from Kaduna, under Mala Nasru El-Rufai, and the same Shekaro that I talked about earlier, there is hardly a state where the opposition party will win even one local government seat. It has always been 100% win for the party in power. That is not
I mean, that's why
possible.
people are skeptical and saying that, they don't trust the election system.
Exactly.
There. But away from that situation, we'll just have to wait and see how that unfolds in court. The former president, Obasanjo, made mention that President Tinubu's policies are necessary but wrongly implemented. And one of the things he pushed for, he said, should be a 25-year agenda that that constitution would bind every incoming administration to continue. Do you think that is a route that could work for the nation?
Yeah, let me first of all agree with former President Obasanjo that the policies are indeed very necessary, but the implementation, as is typical in Nigeria, is the issue. You see, apart from the implementation, there is the issue mentioned by Obasanjo that these foreign investors that the president keeps trying to woo to Nigeria,
to attract.
know Nigeria more than we know ourselves. And these kind of things, disgraceful things like the Emirate tussle in Kano and the obvious backing of one of the factions by the federal government are some of the things that discredit Nigeria. And that is why I call on the president to remember that this is his own government. He shouldn't allow any of his appointees to mess up with the government. The same thing is playing out in Rivers. Somebody, an appointee of the president, is making life impossible to the governor of Rivers State. And governance has virtually stopped. Even the governor said so, that the last 1 year he practically did not do anything, that he only started governance about a few months ago. You can imagine, just because one person has chosen to make life impossible. And now in Kano, the same thing. The governor wanted to launch a program against education, to improve education, to declare a state of emergency on education on Saturday. I'm not sure that has happened because of this
of course. It has drawn everything back.
Exactly. So the president should remember that this is his government. There is no way we can attract foreign direct investment when we have instability in different corners of the country. You understand?
What about the agenda, the 25-year agenda that the former president proposed? Do you think that would work in the country?
Yeah, I believe it will work.
Well, with our National Assembly pushing for the revert of national anthem and all of that, do you think this major thing could be considered? Because one thing Nigerians have always been pushing for is the lack of, continuity of government, where this government would start a project and then let it go, and then the other government would come, and instead of them continuing the project, they want to start something of their own. So do you think the 25-year agenda, where each government would come and continue from where the last one, the previous one, stops, would work?
It's going to be a hard call, honestly, because you are right. You are completely right. There is hardly a government that wants to continue from what their predecessor has stopped, unless, of course, they are of the same party or the same camp. Like, for example, but even in the same camp, look at Ganduje's succeeding Kwankwaso in Kano as an example. He didn't continue with Kwankwaso's policies. He came up with his own, abandoning those of Kwankwaso. Kwankwaso also did the same thing when he abandoned the policies of Malam Ibrahim Shekaro. You understand? And I think Malam Ibrahim Shekaro also did the same thing by abandoning the policies of Kwankwaso, who he took over from after.
So we keep having abandoned projects.
We keep having worth trillions of naira. I have forgotten the figure, but it's a very large amount worth trillions of naira.
That is really disheartening. At this point, I would definitely, hope that the National Assembly will take on this bill. That way, it imposes on everybody coming in. You have to continue from where your predecessor left. But then, due to time, of course, we have to wrap up this segment. There's a lot of stories that I wish we could just have time to dissect. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, SULEIMAN. I appreciate you.
It's my pleasure.
And we hope that your king gets something.
I really pray so. He's a real gentleman.
And we hope the government, of course, find another way to make sure that the local governments and Emirates will be able to reach the state government. And with that, of course, we have come to the end of today's show of Daybreak. Do not forget, of course, tomorrow, 8 a.m. will bring you another exciting episode of Daybreak. At the top of the hour, Emmanuel Fashemi will bring you 360 Sports. I am SUMMAYYA ABUBAKAR. Do have a lovely day and happy Children's Day.